Joining us now from Capitol Hill, a member of the Judiciary Committee, Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut. Also with us, former Assistant United States Attorney in the Southern District of New York, Mimi Rocah. She's a distinguished fellow in criminal justice at Pace School of Law and an MSNBC legal analyst. And Senator Blumenthal, you called the Kennedy announcement earth-shaking and gut-wrenching. Moving forward, though, what's the game plan for Democrats? What's the plan, and what's the top of your list of concerns?
The American people should have a voice. This confirmation vote should take place after the election when the new Congress is seated. A decision of this historic magnitude requires a lot of deliberate consideration that requires more than the few months we have before this election. And the Republicans ought to adhere to their own rule, the McConnell rule, that these kinds of votes should not take place in an election year. So we're going to take this case to the American people. And I might just say, Mika, you know, I was a law clerk to Justice Blackmun on the United States Supreme Court. I've argued cases before the court, 4 of them. I have deep respect for the United States Supreme Court. I have never seen it so polarized and politicized, and I've never seen in this country such an all-out assault on the rule of law. The Supreme Court is going to be a bulwark, as the free press has been, in protecting our fundamental rights and liberties, not just Roe v. Wade, but also gay rights and workers' rights, civil rights like affirmative action, all kinds of rights that we now take for granted. That's the case we're going to make to the American people and to our Republican colleagues. We only need one vote. It's a razor-thin majority that they have.
Steve Rattner.
Dick, recognizing everything that you said and agreeing with it, frankly, I still have trouble understanding or seeing exactly what the Democrats' path is to success on this. They've eliminated, as you well know, the cloture vote on even now Supreme Court nominees. That's how Gorsuch got confirmed. It just is hard for me to see, as a practical matter, put aside appealing to the country and making the moral case. But when you get down to parliamentary tactics, it's very hard for me to see what cards the Democrats actually hold.
We're going to use every tool available in terms of parliamentary rules. But you're right that this Republican leadership has demonstrated nothing but contempt for the normal rules. They broke and remade the rules for Neil Gorsuch, eliminating the 60-vote threshold. And they may well change the other rules that require, for example, Judiciary Committee approval for a nominee. But keep in mind, we still have the American people potentially on our side if President Trump chooses from that list of right-wing fringe ideologues who are committed to overturn Roe v. Wade. That's the reason they are on that list. That's the reason that he has given in his own words. And I think the American people will be repulsed, and all we need is one of our Republican colleagues, whether it's Jeff Flake or Susan Collins or Lisa Murkowski, to say enough is enough. The Supreme Court is really too sacrosanct.
All right, John Meacham.
Senator, do you believe that Chief Justice Roberts, Justice Thomas, Justice Alito, Justice Gorsuch are dangerous for the country?
They are potentially dangerous if they allow Donald Trump to fulfill his potentially tyrannical and overreaching abuse of power and invasion of our fundamental rights. If they refuse to make the court that bulwark for our liberties, the check on the executive branch that it must be now more than ever, they will be irresponsible and reprehensible in abandoning that role they have under our Constitution.
And do you think, are there decisions, was the travel ban a decision? Are there points at which you can point and say, Justice Kennedy was the catcher in the rye, he was the person standing between us and chaos?
Clearly not on the travel ban decision, because he sided with the majority, as he did on a number of other decisions like Citizens United or Gore v. Bush. He was far from a progressive justice, but he was open-minded and fair. And I can tell you, having argued cases in the court and other lower courts, that's what the American people deserve. Someone in the Kennedy mold who will approach case by listening to his colleagues and to the American people.
All right, Noah.
So, Mimi, I have a tweet from you here that is very important because it's an issue that goes to the heart of what the argument is going to be, and we should litigate it. You say in the affirmative, responding to a tweet by Politico's Dan Diamond, Merrick Garland was nominated on March 16, 2016, 237 days before the year's election. McConnell said that it was too close to Election Day for Obama to pick, and voters should decide. That was not exactly what Mitch McConnell's argument was. It was that Barack Obama was a lame duck president, and therefore the voters should decide who gets this nomination, who the next president is going to be. That was the precedent they established. Whether they'll come to regret it or not remains to be seen. But Democrats are now attempting to establish a new precedent, which is essentially what Dan Diamond says here, that proximity to an election day, any election day essentially, whenever 1/3 of the Senate is up, which is every 2 years, is going to be the new established precedent for Democrats. Can you foresee a condition in which Democrats may come to resent the precedent they are seeking to establish here?
Well, yes, that could happen. I understand, but we're in a different world now, and we've got to deal with the circumstances we have. And McConnell did, you can read his precedent narrowly, or you can read it broadly. And the narrow way to read it is only in a presidential election. The broad way to read it is when we're this close to something, an election, any election that's going to be so determinative in how the country, what path we're on in this country, which this congressional election clearly is, as much as almost any presidential election, I would say, then we should wait. So it's hard to know. Obviously, you can't predict 2 years from now and will this come back to haunt the Democrats. But I think we're in this situation now. We've got to deal with this now. How often does the Supreme Court, nominee come up? So I think, but one question that I would have actually for the senator, if he's still available, is whether a nominee should be asked if they would agree to recuse themselves from any decisions that come before the court coming out of the Mueller investigation. For example, if the president, needs to be subpoenaed or something like that. I don't think the justices would be, a nominee be required to recuse themselves, but I'm wondering whether you plan to ask them if they would agree to that.
That's a great question, and I've actually thought about it. Yes, I will ask that question. It is a supremely important question. The justices in the Nixon tapes case, a number of them had been appointed by President Nixon, but they were appointed before there was an investigation of the kind that produced that litigation. Here, we know a subpoena case is very likely involving Donald Trump to go to the United States Supreme Court, and I will ask a nominee to commit him or herself that they will recuse themselves from sitting on that decision.
Okay. Senator Richard Blumenthal, thank you very much. Mimi Rocah, thank you as well. Coming up, we'll be joined by two congressmen from different sides of the aisle who are both calling for immigration reform after visiting the border over the weekend. Morning Joe will be right back.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.